And, our hope is that you will continue to connect, to build friends, to build trust, and go out and collaborate to make our communities a better place. If you live in North Modesto, South Modesto, East Modesto, Patterson, Riverbank, wherever you live, let's find ways that we can work together to make that environment a better place. All right, let's see here. Right now, we're going to jump into some table conversations, so I hope you've had a first cup of coffee and get the conversation going. And if you haven't met somebody and you want to switch around a little bit, go for it. We're going to, before we hear our panel, we're going to do that. I think the questions are on the screen. There we are. So let's take some time. Let's open up and let's have some conversation and a couple more sips of coffee. All right. Good morning. And the power of creativity as we come together and have conversation to be creative in our communities. And it's so cool to hear and see. And man, what a great morning to have Chris McPherson, which graduated from California State University, Stanislaus in theater, and became a creative arts director in the Central Valley, leading a variety of musical productions. Chris is a 17-year cast member with Walt Disney Company. That's my little heaven on earth. I love Disneyland and so forth. He currently holds the position of project manager for the entertainment, focusing on leadership development for all levels of employees at the Disneyland Resort. So everybody that you see, hi, good morning, happy birthday. That's probably this guy is training everybody. So that's really cool. Can you welcome Chris McPherson as he shares about leadership empowers and creative culture? Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Jose. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for letting me be here this morning. I really appreciate it. Impressed by the beauty of the real Matterhorn, Walt Disney grabbed a postcard of the mountain from a souvenir stand and sent it back to his Imagineer, Vic Green, with this message: Vic, period, build this, period, Walt. Clear expectations, right? This resulted in a mountain structure of 1/100th of a scale of the original Matterhorn size, topping at about 147 feet. And inside a roller coaster, creating a thrilling ride down a snowy peak. The Matterhorn was one of the first e-ticket rides at Disneyland in 1959. It was built with just the shell, and the inside was hollow, with only the track. As time went on, it needed to feel more like a bobsled ride. It needed to be plussed. So in 1978, two things were added to plus it. One, the hollow inside was then formed to be icy caves and caverns and tunnels to go in and out. And the second thing to plus it was, well, what would a Matterhorn be without a Yeti? And so Harold, a Yeti was added in that time. And then later on, Harold got plussed again during the 60th anniversary and became lifelike with amazing animatronics and a stereo sound roar. They kept plussing it. Walt said this: Disneyland means a lot to me in that it's something that will never be finished. Something that I can keep developing, keep plussing, and add to it because it's a living, breathing thing that will need changes. Walt coined this term of plussing, meaning to celebrate what we accomplished and encourage his coworkers to find ways to plus it to ensure that the guests kept engaged, that his team kept creatively alive and challenged, and that it could be the best it could be. And by empowering his team to this next level thinking, it gave Disney the extra edge early on. And that thinking still continues today. Folks, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary or extraordinary, the difference is the extra. As I share a few insights of my journey, perhaps you will take some extra with you to your sphere of work. So I have a question for you this morning. In your areas of influence as a leader, have you become best friends with the status quo? In your influence, in the areas that you lead, have you become best friends with the status quo? You may be thinking, Chris, my status quo is good. Well, you're all amazing leaders, and it should be. But I've come to realize that the enemy of great is good. Well, good enough. It's good enough. Companies and leaders that are at the top of their game, they didn't fall there because they were just good. They kept continually plussing their status quo with creativity. But it takes leadership to empower a creative culture. And this type of leadership, I believe, embodies and pursues three different things: curiosity, courage, and collaboration. And so the first is curiosity. You know, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. A key difference for those who are good at what they do and those who are great at what they do is how they see things. Greatness is what happens when you relentlessly and continuously pursue curiosity. Well, what is curiosity? It's poking and prodding and prying with a purpose, right? It's not so complex. When you know your why, then your what has more impact. When you know your why, then your what has more impact. And your curiosity, it then pushes you and aims you towards your purpose, towards your why. When leading a creative culture, your curiosity, right? It can be this loud cheer that says, go, 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 and then you leap to the unknown. Or it can be that loud cheer, but you've learned to silence it. I'm going to just stay in my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane. Why? Because we feel like when we go outside of our lane, we're going to get in trouble. Or it's going to have a negative effect. Whether it's from your past, previous experiences, or how you've been led, we put up limits on our leadership, which hinders creativity, yours and the team's, rather than empowering it. E.E. Cummins says this: once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity and wonder and spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit. Folks, the human spirit is one of adventure, one of pioneering. Don't settle with the status quo because of your past hindrances. Don't settle. Know who you are. Know who you're not. Know your why. When you understand the purpose of your leadership, your values, your curiosity has tremendous freedom because your motive is clear, your purpose is honest, and it's purposeful. When you're leading your team, I want to challenge you with that curiosity. Ask deeper questions. Challenge your team with the why nots. Well, why not? Not just the why, but the why not. You know, be a yes and leader, not a no but leader. You know those leaders? That yes and leader is yes, and we can do that, and we'll need to think about that. That no but leader is no, but we can't do that. We don't have enough money for that. Right? That yes and leader type of thinking is and another new dimension. And that no but, that but puts up a big ugly thing. Big ugly thing. But. Right? Be that yes and leader, not the no but leader. If you're curious, you create opportunities. And when you open the doors for those opportunities, then you create possibilities. But it begins with that curiosity. The more curious you are, the better you become at being curious. The more curious you are, the better you become at being curious. But you have to be curious to become curious. Walt said, we keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Folks, his curiosity had started a company that's about to celebrate 100 years, that has impacted hundreds of dreams and given lasting memories to families. Why? How? One man's curiosity of poking and prodding and prying with a purpose changed the impossible to possible. I'm going to ask you and challenge you, will you increase your curiosity to empower your creative culture to make the seemingly impossible possible. Second, courage. It takes courage to empower a creative culture. You know, Walt Disney was fired from the Kansas City Star newspaper in 1919 because his editor said he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. He was rejected by multiple bankers because they thought the idea of a mouse was absurd. And initially, the city of Anaheim rejected his proposal for Disneyland because they felt it would only attract low social status people. Empowering a creative culture takes courage to continue. The ironic or sweet ending is that the Disney company went on to purchase ABC in 1996, which at that time owned the Kansas City Star newspaper. The same newspaper that said he had no imagination, which was now a part of his empire that he built. The courage to continue paid off. I believe that most people fail to achieve their goals or creative desires because they quit too early. They just quit too early. You have to be sold on what you're selling before you can sell anybody else on it. If not, then when you face adversity, when you lead your creative culture, when you face adversity, you believe it's the end of the game, rather than it's just halftime and time to refocus. When you know your why, you can push through any how. When you know your why, you can push through any how. And a how can feel and look like a failure. Empowering a creative culture takes courage to fail. Brené Brown said, "There is no innovation and creativity without failure, period." On July 17th, 1955, opening day at Disneyland, it was so hot down there, and water fountains didn't work. He had to choose between toilets and a water fountains, so he chose toilets. So water fountains didn't work. So guests had to buy drinks. And some guests thought it was a cynical way and believed the inoperable drinking fountains were a way to sell sodas. Later on that day, the park started to run out of food and drinks. And since it was hot, the newly laid asphalt began to soften. And back in 1955, everyone dressed up, right? Ladies in heels and everything. And so because the asphalt was soft, shoes and heels began to get stuck in the asphalt. On Main Street, USA, happiest place on earth, right? Epic fail for many. Epic fail for many. Walt said later in his career, all the adversity in my life, all my troubles, all my obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. Fellow creative leaders, the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. The bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. Have courage to continue, courage to fail, and also courage to choose. Always do things right. Always do things right. But never lose sight of doing the right thing. Making decisions where policies and procedures are in place is easy, or it's easier. It's when you have to make a decision that goes against popular opinion or goes against the status quo. It takes courage to choose. It takes courage to choose in the moment to lead your creative team. We must choose as leaders to choose to lose the fear of being wrong. Fear paralyzes and kills creativity. Ken Robinson said, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. And I don't know what it's like to be wrong. I think in the creative culture, being wrong is acceptable, but staying wrong is unacceptable. You know, and many people stay wrong and don't want to let go because they're not in the moment. And one thing I've learned about being in the moment, you as a leader, you have to become a detached observer. This means disconnect from the emotion of the moment. Why did they do that? Why did they say that? My team's driving me crazy, right? Disconnect from the moment. And then ask yourself, what is the need in this particular moment? What is the need? And focus your energy on being a problem eliminator rather than a problem identifier. And third, the hardest thing of all is surrender your own agenda. Surrender your own agenda, right? Our leader self kicks in and our mouth opens up and suddenly our ears close. The courage to choose may mean to choose a different way than your own. Winston Churchill said, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. So I want to challenge you. Will you choose courage rather than fear to empower your creative culture to make the seemingly impossible possible? And the third aspect, I really believe that empowers a creative culture is collaboration. Collaboration, we hear that a lot. It's not just about assembling a team and then, all right, let's accomplish a task. It's so much more than that. It's about a shared vision. Antoine de Saint said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people together to collect wood and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. The best creative cultures are those that see the immensity of their sea, the vision, their vision. As each one of your team understands the vision, their craving to contribute, their burn to learn, their need to achieve, it will grow. It's easy, right? Here's the vision, go. Right, we have teams, right? And they go do it, right? It's not that easy, right? You take a little bit and you like, pixie dust. Poof! They get the vision. Let's go. It's not that easy. As a leader, our role is to find out what's inside of them, what's inside of our team, and connect those things with the vision so it resonates with them. What they do best, they must do most. Let me say that again. What your team does best, they must do most. If not, they're not going to be on your team long. They're not going to be on your team long. You want to empower a creative culture, then the goal is not simply for you just to cross the finish line, but it must be to inspire people to run with you. How you collaborate with your team and how you communicate to your team will inspire action. Snow White premiered at the Carthay Circle Theater in Los Angeles on December 21st, 1937. It was a success. Ken Anderson, who was the art director for Snow White, said Walt had this idea for a movie. So he pulled his team in together and he shared the story with them. Ken said he painted a picture with his words and created a vision that was even better and clearer than anything they could put on the screen. They couldn't believe their ears. Snow White debuted in 1937 with tickets averaging 17 cents each. It grossed over $8.3 million on its first release. Wow. And it held the record of the highest grossing sound film at that time. Folks, I share this story with you because leadership that empowers a creative culture must have a clear vision. You must have a clear vision. And you must be, as the leader, you must be intentional to communicate in a way that inspires people to take action. You don't just stand up at a meeting and throw your stuff together and say, all right, let's go. It's intentional communication. It's intentional planning. You want to inspire your team to be creative? Then be intentional with it. Walt said he couldn't do it alone. His ability to cast a vision in a way that people could catch it built collaboration. My question for you is, will you communicate intentionally and collaborate with your team to ensure that what they do best, they do most, to make the seemingly impossible possible? I'll leave you with these three overarching values of leading a creative culture. One, it's not what you can get for yourself that matters. It's what you can give from yourself that matters most. Two, always look for the good. Ralph Marston said, being positive in a negative situation is not naive, it's leadership. Three, there's no direct path to creative success. Your success will depend on your willingness to persevere and go beyond the status quo. The greatest reward will lie within your most unexpected journey. The greatest reward will lie in your most unexpected journey. Curiosity, courage, and collaboration. Thank you all.
Man,
I know we wanted to take a few minutes, right, for some questions.
Go for it. Yeah, go.
So just wanted to, Jose, come up and take a few minutes. If any questions prompted you regarding leading a creative culture, any questions out there?
Thank you. That was awesome. What advice would you give when you're trying to lead that creative culture and you might have 1 or 2 or 3 team members that are 8 to 5ers?
That are
8 to 5ers, they just want to put the minimum in, do the work, don't want change, just want to stay in that lane.
Yeah, a couple faces come to mind. You know, my team. It's that what happens outside of work is, for those folks, is as important or more important than what happens in work. And so for me as a leader, it was being intentional to know them beyond the work stuff, right? If they allow it, right? And to really dig in and get to know them. And as I got to know them, then it was leveraging a little bit of what I talked about, leveraging some of those desires and passions, and how they can contribute to the team. If a team manager feels like what they say and what they do doesn't make a difference, then they're 8 to 5ers. But when they can tangibly see something that matters, they become 8 to 6ers and 7ers and 8. I'm not making them work longer, but you know what I'm saying? That commitment is deeper. And it's also the other thing is also giving them work that matters. We all have jobs to do, right? You have to do what you have to do. But let's get real. There's things in a job that, in a workplace, that these things really, really matter. And it's being able to take some of that stuff and give that to them so that they can get a chance to shine.
If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Smart.
Yeah,
Mike.
thanks, Chris. Can I hold the mic? You mentioned courage to continue through failure. Can you share with us a story of you facing a failure and what was your path to stick through it and persevere?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is my journey to Disneyland. You know, when I was ready to step out from here in the valley, I was like, go. And so I had, you know, it was like, I think I can do this, right? And so I jumped and stepped out in faith, right? And you think you step out in faith and those doors are going to open up. Yes, yes, yes. And I got my first interview, second interview, third interview, and I got the call. I'm like, well, yeah, here we go. We're ready to go. Hi, this is so-and-so from casting. We went with another person. Are you kidding me? Right? Even when I drove down south at other times, I didn't even look at Disneyland when I passed it. I was so mad. I had to look the other way, right? I felt like I was a failure. It's Chris. Chris can do anything. Chris failed, right? I couldn't even look myself in the mirror at times. And a year later, they're like, hey, are you interested? I'm like, why? At first, I thought, why do I want to go back to be rejected again? But what happened in that year process was something was going on in the inside. And I realized that I had to readjust the inside. I had to readjust how I view myself. I said earlier, know who you are and know who you're not. That was about me. I had to realize who I was and who I wasn't, and what I put my values and what was my purpose. And I think subconsciously it was like, Chris, the Disney guy. And I didn't want, after that year of desert time, I didn't want to be Chris, the Disney guy. I just wanted to be Chris, the guy that can give and help inspire people. Right? And so that failure, and then I did go back, and it was so refreshing to go back to those interviews because I had nothing to prove. I went from showing myself to just sharing myself. And wow, there was so much freedom in that. And that was the failure for me to continue. And even the guy that didn't hire me a few years ago, he says, I don't know why I didn't hire you the first year. Look at you now. Look at you now. You know, and I said, Dwayne, I know why you didn't hire me the first year, because it wasn't meant to be. I needed some readjustment on the inside to be able to do what I'm doing now. And so I would say take those failures and look to them as a time to redevelop, to hit pause and recalibrate.
Chris, from a perspective of team building, you know, you have individuals that just all of a sudden just really grow in that kind of environment, right? I mean, because they're challenged and everybody's excited. How do you manage around those that just exceptionally grow in the organization versus those that are steadily growing, but they've been in the organization a lot longer, and you identify that person is like a superstar over here? How do you manage through when all of a sudden there's opportunities for advancement?
Yeah, I think of one of the teams that I led, and as I went into that, I try to establish close to the beginning, after kind of collecting data, the expectations of one, obviously sharing that vision, but what does success look like, right, for me? And in terms of, it's not like we're going to put on the greatest show. That's a given, right? We have to do that. But what does success look like individually and for us as a team? And never stop communicating that. And being relentless in terms of bringing everyone back to that point, because at that point, when someone says, "I never get the opportunity," I just keep doing what I'm doing. How come I never get to grow? It's much. I'm not going to say easier, but I can bring them back to this place of, remember these things we talked about 2 months ago. Let's talk about how you have grown in some of these areas, and let's talk about the areas you haven't grown in. And so I think a lot of times is if we can take the wonder of what you see and what you expect out of it and be super, super clear, it helps them to know what they need to obtain. The other thing too is I'm not going to give up on anybody, but there's folks that I have to really put my investment into in terms of time and emotional energy, because if they've chosen to be on that path, then that's okay, as long as it doesn't impact in a negative way my team. And then I start really moving to those that are going to be those excellers. Joe, I don't know if did I answer that for you?
Hey, Chris. Back in the corner back here,
Hi.
We have a question from online. So you have a whole group of people who are online following this, but here's a question. So what leadership advice around creativity do you have for those who are eager to get back to reopening the economy after the 15th?
Wow, that's a good question.
So really speaking to leadership, leading a community, those who are leading a community and creativity.
Yeah, I think in any situation, you can't lose sight of your purpose, right? Because things have changed and we do things differently now. That doesn't mean our purpose has changed. And I think a lot of times we as leaders or creative people, we start going down a different direction and we realize, why are we doing this? And so the first advice I would say is stop before you start making any changes, because you really want to open things up and get things going, and revisit what you're about. Revision that vision, revisit that purpose. And then from there, then how do we accomplish that purpose, given these limitations, given these boundaries, given these parameters? And I really believe that some of those boundaries are actually going to give you more creativity and more open mind thinking, because you have some boundaries. Sometimes when we say, go create, it's like, I don't even know where to begin. But when you can line up some boundaries and some what what are our limitations now, given where we're at and how we run things in the community. And I really think it's gonna focus you probably a lot quicker to achieve your goal. My advice would be like, stop and revisit your purpose, because that shouldn't have changed.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much. Right here.
Hey, buddy.
So just some wisdom on the management process, I guess, on how to keep the creative process authentic as a manager. You know, once you throw in deadlines, you know, budgets, etc., when you're managing a team that's creative, it could seem as a big constraint. But how do you keep the creative process flowing in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, given all those, I'm hearing budgets and you can't do this, you can do this, you can't do that. It, you know, I look at one of the teams, the creative operational teams that I was leading down at Disneyland, and I think a lot of times some of those casts felt like their hands were tied. You know, here's what you can do, here's what you can do. So for me as a leader, it was not ignoring what we can't do, but what we can do. How can we do it with our best, right? And again, if I can give you a specific example. I think every company trains, right? We all train. We have to train people, and it's like, oh, we have to do training again. We have to do training again, right? One of those things. It's like every month I have to do training. I have to do training. I have to go to training. I have to do this, right? It's more. So one of the things that we did with our cast, it was a training session. Is we said, how do we train differently? How do we make this moment, even though we have a goal to do, how do we make it different? And so we said every time we did training, we would get Subway sandwiches, right? We would give them Subway sandwiches, and then they would come back from their break and eat their Subway sandwiches. This time we said, how do we make this feel different? Same training. So we took the Subway sandwiches, they went off for a break. We redecorated the room with tablecloths and crystals. We put crystal on the table and silverware and glasses. And then we got out of our business attire and put on tuxedos. And we put their Subway sandwiches on a plate. And then we said, welcome to lunch. What? This is awesome. It was amazing. Even some said, wow, the sandwich tastes so much better. And I say that because it was the same training, and then we did it the next time and the next time, right? But it was the same training, just done differently. And I think if you as a leader can stop and say, how can I take what I'm doing and what we're doing and do it differently with a different perspective, it engages that creative spirit. Within our limitations, there are limitations, but within those limitations, this is what we have to work with. And I can tell you though, when you work within those limitations, hopefully at a time, those limitations tend to grow because those leaders above you see what you're doing and want to embrace that and give you more, right? Or give you more freedom. I hope that answered some of that spot. It's a fun training day when you can do that.
That's good. Chris, we have one last question and then we'll close this up. Myra?
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Thank you for your encouragement and just inspiration just
My
by
pleasure.
speaking. My question is about the whole staying in your lane and how the enemy of great is good or good enough. What is your suggestions for someone who receives that message, and what are your suggestions for those who give that message?
Yeah, that's really good. For me as a subordinate, when I would go outside my lane, and I tended to do that often, I think I felt like at times I could. There were times where I didn't know if I could, but I went to my leader and I had a very clear and honest conversation, with her. What is your expectation of me? Right? And how do you, I go back to, I said earlier, how do you define success? right? How do you define success? And if I can live with how she defines success within those parameters of what she values and what the company values and not go outside of that, then there's tremendous freedom. So for me, as a leader of leaders and as a subordinate, it was having that clear and honest conversation of what is your expectation, and also being as bold to say, what would it look like if I went out of my lane? Right? Because sometimes you don't know you go out of your lane until someone says, hey, can you come and see me? Right? And you're like, crap. Right? And that's okay. You know, if you're not getting in trouble, that's okay. Get in trouble a little bit. In the right way. Right? But I think it's really having that honest conversation. And when you do that, you have tremendous freedom. The other aspect is the same thing that you expect of your leaders, you give to your folks as well. This is my expectation. Here's what staying in your lane means. I want to give you tremendous freedom. I think a lot of times it's not about, I want to clear paths for you. It's about clearing obstacles for them. We want to make a path so our folks can be successful. I don't know about that. I say clear the obstacles out of the way and let them make the path to go as long as we're accomplishing our purpose. So I think for you is, as a leader of folks, are you clearing obstacles? And also then having that honest conversation with them is what gets in your way? How do I get in your way? It takes a lot of courage to do that as a leader. Am I in your way? How do I talk to me straight up? And I have that. It's like, yeah, you listen to us and then you put it in your pile to do. 3 months later, then we hear about it. I had a cast member tell me that. I'm like, well, that was a reality check, right? And so by my actions, I made him stay in his lane. Right? And so I think it's knowing what those actions that we're doing that we don't even know we're doing that causes people to stay in their lane.
Holy smokes, man. I don't know if I can say that at a Catalyst, but thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's give Chris a big round of applause, man. Amazing. And I'm going to do this. This is cool. So sprinkle everybody with... Jeez, man, I am juiced. All right, I am juiced. This was a good morning. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the inspiration. No wonder Disneyland's the happiest place to be. You got amazing people to do that. And you all are amazing people. You are valued in our community, and you sprinkle the dust in our county. And so thank you. Thank you. Sprinkle me, right? Somebody said that. If you know who said that, you're right on. But anyhow, man, we're so thankful you're being here. We're going to have a quick table discussion. Questions are going to be on the screen. Let's hear what you heard, and let's go from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Jose. I've asked Chris to come back up because when you think about the 3 points of curiosity, courage, and collaboration, and those are your 3 points in developing creativity on a team, you are just been given the job at Downey High School, and you will now be responsible for the theater department. So that's right, at Downey High School.
Thank you.
So I asked you earlier, just share with us a little bit about how do you plan the best you can to take your 3 points of curiosity, courage, and collaboration into your new role, and do the best you can to share with us the picture of how you think it might roll out or you hope to have it roll out.
Yeah, when I got the role, so many times, Downey has this great program. Downey has this, Downey, all that. And it was like, yes, awesome. And I think those 3 points is Downey's had an incredible heritage of theater, right? An incredible history. And for me, heritage and history is different. The heritage of doing something awesome and inspiring students is that foundation. The history has been, they've done Oklahoma, they've done Hairspray, they've done, right? And so my thing is to bring those students in, to be curious of, we're gonna build off this foundation of this heritage that we have as a school, but our new histories may look different. So, and to be able to paint the picture for them, but also to allow them to hold the paintbrush. I think it's really important. I don't want to come in with my ideas. I have my ideas, but I don't want to come in with that and it's like, hand me the paint bucket. No, here's the paintbrush. What does it look like? And for me, is and allow them to be curious on that journey with me, and also continue to create an environment of courage to step out, courage to take risk. And then the last thing for me is collaboration. Is I'm not going to work in a silo at Downey. I've made that a commitment to myself. There's incredible artists here in the Central Valley, and I'm not gonna be in a silo. I'm gonna collaborate, share my vision with them, and hope that we can make a giant neighborhood of incredible performing arts in Modesto.
I do have another question for you, but as I told you privately weeks ago, you're one of us, and so
Thank you.
our resources are going to be yours, so I know you'll be asking, and
Thank you.
we'll jump in with you. I have another question for you. So 15, 16, 17 years ago, you thought you were going to go to Disneyland, and you were going to be all that, and they were going to take you and make you, Walt Disney Jr., showing yourself. I mean, you were excited to be a part. Second, so you spent a year just struggling, feeling like a failure, just the internal work that needed to happen in your life. You get the position, you're there for quite some time. And then you make a tough decision of coming back here. Share with us a story of you coming, the decision, just the process of coming back, as well as, again, you applying for positions that didn't embrace you quickly because you worked at Disney. And how did you respond differently now through those challenges than you did, I'll say, 20 years ago?
I wasn't going to have any regrets. I think that was the big thing. After my mom had passed away a few years ago, and then my dad had passed away a year later, it just rattled me. And I knew I wasn't, I had the job I was doing, it's not a great job, but the job I was doing full time, it was great. I mean, there was nothing pushing me away. It was what was pulling me here. And so that's what I had to go with. It's not so much what's pushing you, it's what's pulling you. And so to make sure that I had no regrets. The other thing, to answer that, how I was different, was I realized that it's not about me. That the experiences and the platform and the opportunities that I've been blessed to have isn't for my own resume, but it's to help other people. And so that has been my purpose, is to help others be the best version of themselves. And I feel like I do it best through the arts and teaching and leadership. And so those things, Marvin, really came to the forefront of my mind, and that was the kind of the deal breaker that pushed me to make the step to come back to the Valley. Processing wise, how am I different than I was before? I think it's just that I had the same values, but my priorities were just out of whack. They just really were. I mean, bright and shiny things are really attractive, right? And it's like, yeah, really attractive, but at the end of the day, they burn out. And so, and that's not in reference to Disneyland at all. It has nothing to that has to do with my own, like, wow, that would be cool. Wow, that title. And I don't need a title. I don't want any of that. I'd rather hold the spotlight for someone than be in the spotlight. That's what is different.
Well, I'm quite proud of you. Thank you. Thanks. We all face these, being Chris's friend. When you have the chance, you take it, and as few regrets as possible. And I know Chris, the best he can to look himself in the mirror, and knows when he had the chance, he took it. He didn't chicken out to jump, and to leave everything to move to a place that he had no place to live, and he lived with an older family, and just, it was rough. So it's a process. I'm quite proud of you. Curiosity, asking better questions, the courage to continue through failure, to choose courage. My obstacles have strengthened me. Collaboration, and I learned what they do best your employees or your team, they must do most. And sharing myself, not showing, sharing myself, not showing myself. So thank you so much, Chris. We all have a story of success and failure and trying this and trying that and jumping and hurting and all that. And I want to encourage you, you don't have to do that by yourself. I hope you have a team. We want to be that team with you and for you. I pray you'll have that team where as you jump and try different things, that you'll have cheerleaders alongside you. You'll have collaborators alongside you, and we'll run with you. We'll run with you. This presentation will be online, available to you here in a few days, Lord willing tomorrow, but it's on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and look at it and share it with people around. I want to encourage you to do that. One of the ways we declare success around our catalysts is how many times there's conversations out in the community about this time, you getting with somebody and just sharing a thought, making a new connection. Amazing how many organizations, relationships have been developed through this time, through the years. And you're online or live. We're still in the middle of COVID, but we're coming out of it. We're coming back live, so please invite people to be with you, not because the numbers thing is so important to us, but we're discovering everything in our community is trust and relationships. No trust, no relationships, nothing is going to get done for the sake of our young people and our families. So I want to encourage you, please share with somebody. We're going to come back. I want to encourage you too, we are a 501c3 organization, so I know lots of us in the room are. So if you, though, want to give financially to us and support and partner with us that way, that's fantastic. If not, just keep sharing with your friends. We're going to be okay. Next month, so our topic is school opens up next month, and in fact, we'll be right in the middle of opening our schools. There'll be teachers and principals doing in-services that week. We're going to be looking at our public schools, and we're going to have a panel of local school district superintendents. And we'll get a chance to have them share with us just some of the things that they've been working on over the last year. Last summer, we had Scott Siegel from Series and just shared the challenge of closing schools and what are all the questions and all the budget challenges. And so we want to come back and revisit that as schools opening, our schools are going to be reopening. What are the challenges are they facing now? What have they learned over the last year? How are we going to move forward? If you haven't noticed, it is a different world. And I feel sorry for you if you are living in nostalgia. I'm sorry. I'd love to have it that way too, but this is a new day. It's a new world, new challenges. It's a pretty exciting time. I was talking to somebody early this morning on texting. What an exciting time of adaptation and innovation and sadness and death and sickness and wonderful time to look at the world. And so we'll be looking at our schools and hearing from the experts. I'm going to pray for you. Thank God for us and for you. Thank you, Chris, so much. I'm quite proud of you. He'll be here to answer any questions. And if you think you will have something that can support him at Downey High School, I'm a Modesto High Panther. I hate Downey, but it's okay. Yeah. All right. I better. Who started this? That's how my team asks me all the time. How did we get there? Master, thank you for Chris and all the lessons that he's learned. And now he can share with others. And I'm pretty confident that's part of your role and your purpose in the yuck and the hard things that we go through, not just for our own personal development, but then share it with others with the hope and intent that they might gain from our experiences. And I do think how painful my experiences have been when I do them myself, and how hard and hurtful it is when I make those mistakes. But Lord, it sure is less painful when I learn from the mistakes of others. And so may I be watchful and curious about their challenges in their life. Lord, you have some amazing men and women in our community. May we work together so that this place, this county, would be a great place to grow up in and to grow old in for everybody. In Christ's name, amen. You have a good morning.